Well, welcome everyone to the Younger, Older, Elder channel here on YouTube as part of the Wealth Movement. Our workshop today is on evidence, education, and experience as a catalyst to develop a legacy contribution. So it's very much a how-to get you involved, so you can certainly ask questions in the chat function that's available to you. If you're watching this afterwards, again, put your comments or your questions in the comment section, and I will certainly answer. So it's great to be with you today. This is the Saturday workshop. It starts at 10 a.m. Mountain Calgary time, and we open up different possibilities. The third Saturday of every month is this evidence education experience workshop. So today has very much, I'm leaning into it, but I will be inviting persons into the other ones because they will be bringing different kinds of questions and we'll be able to unpack them, answer them. So think of it as a community mentor heart, where I'm able to offer some mentoring insights and doing it from a very much a wholehearted perspective. But today is I'm leaning in. I'm going to be sharing the overview of this catalyst. And what I'm going to be working with is my whiteboard. And there is a fair bit of information here, and I will be setting it up so that you can get screenshots of things, and then I'll also put reference to a blog article where you can go get the different screenshots as well. But for the most part, I think you'll catch everything that you need off of the video itself. So with that, why don't we get into it? I don't see any immediate questions have popped in. Let me just go check. No, there's nothing there. So to set this up, I would offer to you is that I have been working in the area of living legacy life, probably a good 7 years now, but it was in the last couple of years, especially the last 6 months, where I've really brought to the foreground the way in which I want to go about helping others in living legacy life. So with that, what I did was that I created the YouTube channel, Younger, Older, Elder, and lots of videos here in terms of the long forms and also the short forms. And the great thing is the long forms, there's between 3 minutes and 40 minutes, different ones. The shorts are about a minute long. Now, these are really great prompts to get you started. If you ever need a morning, usually by 9 o'clock, Calgary Mountain time, the short is up, ready to go for the day. Sometimes I put up 2. But if you just watch it and you have a journal nearby, you can put a thought down and keep adding to it. And you'll find that to be very useful when I get into the next element of this. So again, the longs are there on different topics, and you can certainly suggest topics you'd like me to cover as well. So with this sort of 6 months of really deeper understanding, I came to appreciate that I have a background in sort of systems approach. Systems, save yourself time, effort, and money, and add that S to make it safer. So from a perspective of safer practices, safer systems. And I kept shying away from it, thinking I don't really need to do that. I'll just help people understand the basics and then encourage them to do their own work. But then I realized by watching a lot of the YouTube videos, people are helping those who are 50, 60, 70, 80 to start up YouTube channels. And I said, hang on a minute, do I want to jump straight to a YouTube channel? Well, I guess if you're on YouTube, you would see it and go, oh, this makes sense. And I sort of backpedaled a little bit now. Hang on a minute. If you don't quite know what your legacy contribution is, and if you go set up a YouTube channel as a legacy contribution, do you have enough insight about what you're bringing with you? And this is why evidence, education, and experience, this catalyst that I want to share with you today, was born. And I said, okay, if that's the case, do I have tools and techniques to support it? Oh, yes, I do. From my consulting days. And so with a little bit of rejigging them, updating some of them, I've come to understand that I have a whole series of tools and techniques that I can support. And one of them being the 3E catalyst. And on the other Saturdays, aside from that third Saturday every month, I will be sharing something, a tool or technique with you, in which you can pop in and it'll be live and you can ask questions and see what comes of it. So I'll just explain to you, this is going to be raw. And so you'll be noticing the screen will move around a little bit because I will go get things and then bring it back into the center and work with it. So there will be a little bit of that, and that's the rawness of it. And I think that's kind of exciting as well. So to set this up, I think what's really important is to understand that these three words, if you take a look at it in an overview perspective, sort of an eagle flying over looking at the terrain, these are three key words to keep in mind when you're thinking about creating a legacy contribution, living your legacy life. And just very briefly, legacy is about the useful what's that you gift others so that they can learn something from your experience. And the useful what's are time, effort, and money. How do you use your time, effort, and money and making contributions and creating stories and experiences, events kind of idea. And these three words are helpful in framing up what it is that you're going to do. So it's sort of like the first stop along the pathway of living your legacy life is just getting a handle on these base concepts. So that's where we're going. So think of it from this perspective. There is an entry point into your path. You're going to go through these elements so that you can get on your way and move through it. So think of it from that angle. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to unpack these three in such a way as to give you a sense of how they come together. So think of it this way. Remember, I used the word catalyst? Well, evidence then feeds those two, experience feeds those two, education feeds those two. It's like a dog chasing its tail. They are interacting with one another. And as you move along this pathway, then what's going to happen is you're going to be using this all the time along this pathway. So as you find yourself making a contribution, you go, okay, what's my evidence, experience, education, consideration of that? And then as I go through that, what is the evidence and experience and education that I pull from it that links into the next one? So they're constantly chasing themselves as you are walking along your legacy life path. Now, with that, it's important to think about this from the perspective of, okay, what does each bring to the foreground? So let's take a look at the sense of evidence. What is it about evidence that's important? Okay. What evidence do you have of your life, having lived your life? You're in this younger, older, elder storyline. You're somewhere along that younger, older component. In other words, you defined yourself as an older along that continuum. You move from younger to older. What does that look like? What's happening for you? What evidence do you have that you are living your life? And so there are a couple of ways in which to take a look at that. And that's where we're going to go now. So let's bring over the evidence storyline. And therefore, there are 12 evidence sources that you can tap into. Okay, 14, 21. I chose 12. And these are base snippets. So these are places that you can go grab this evidence that can feed your understanding of, I want to create a legacy contribution, the story, project. What have I got to work with? And I did this for myself, and I have different bins and books that I've written, and I'm going to share some of those personal connections with you so that you might understand how these all come together. And think of this as, oh, okay, here's 12. What of these do I have access to? Do any of these spark me to think about collecting that evidence, curating that evidence so that I have available when I go to start looking at creating a contribution, writing my stories, or building a project, that experience that you want to work from. So here's the 12 evidence sources that you can work with. So the very first one is personal records like journals and diaries, and you can extract your thoughts, feeling, experience from those. I'm not saying you take your diary, which tends to be quite personal, and start, oh, here's a whole bunch of stuff. But you might take a snippet. There might be something, a really beautiful phrase you want to use. Or you go to your journals that you've written over the years, or maybe you've started writing a journal. One of the journals that I'm tapping into at the moment, because I'm writing an autobiography, is the journal that I wrote on my trip from Kathmandu, Nepal, to London, England. I kept track every day of where we visited, what I ate, what money did I spend, was there any noticeable learning from that day? Because during that trip, what I did was, my theme of that travel time was play and recreation. What play did I experience? What recreation did I get involved with? What did I see? What did I feel? What did I experience? And that then led me to take different kinds of photographs. Now, this was back in the 70s. So I had my camera with me, short lens, long lens. And I remember taking one picture, which became a slide. And now I'm going to have to get that slide over into digital format. I appreciate that. But the slide was of a young boy on a swing with the Himalayas in the background. And I always had that image as a reminder of that travel. And that alone, that image could make a really great story in a book, for example. In my case, it's going to be an autobiography. So you have your letters and your diaries. Journals and your diaries. But also you can tap into letters and emails. You can pull snippets from your communication. One of the things that I did as well on my trips, that Kathmandu, England trip, but I've worked in Africa for a couple of years. I wrote letters back, and my mother and father kept them. And I found them in their left boxes. They both passed, and I found them and went, oh, this is kind of neat. So I grabbed them, and I have them in my my legacy box, and I'm going through those and pulling snippets, and some of them I may actually scan them and then put them into the book. I don't know, but I have those letters, and there's emails that I've kept. Sometimes what I do is I take a copy of the email and I'll put it into a document. So again, different ways in which your letters and emails can be used. Of course, there's photo albums that are available to you. There are lots of ways in which to do photo albums. You see them in the case here. There's different kinds of photo albums that one can pull from. Lots of digital images. Again, I've been scanning and creating. And the great thing about artificial intelligence now, you can go create your own and figure out how to play with that and create images that you can use and store them away for later. Some of you may have scrapbooks and memory boxes. My memory boxes are those clear plastic boxes you can get at a store, that one of the bigger mall stores, and I just store items in them, and then I go through them and figure out what's going on. And right now I'm doing a major culling. Things are going out left, right, and center, and I'm compiling everything because of this autobiography. Another thing you can tap into is your family records. So the genealogy research or the family heirlooms, family traditions and rituals, you can tap into those and remember them and bring them forward. I did a little bit of genealogy research, find out a little bit about my family, but I'm basically a solo ager, and both my parents are passed, and I'm living and walking very much a solo life. And actually, I never really learned a lot about my history. My parents really never talked about it very much, and I guess I wasn't that interested. And so I've done a little bit digging, trying to figure out a few things, but there's a lot of Swiss cheese holes in that research, but that's okay. Family heirlooms, you can see one in the back here behind me. There's the book, and then just in back of there is the hot coals pan that you use for the bed. And in another video, I call it the bed pan. Oh, no, it's the hot coals pan, the bed warmer. And I kept it, and I put it just there in the background as a reminder of those days when I was younger, and I'll build it into a story, and I had to clean it all the time. And what's kind of interesting is there's still just some of the cleaning paste still in one of the edges of it. And so it's a great reminder. So it's going to end up in the autobiography as well. Family traditions and rituals. Oh, I'm sure you have them. One for me is my mom was heating up a tin of pudding for Christmas. And we all happened to be sitting at the big table outside of the kitchen itself in the dining room. And it exploded and just went all over the ceiling. She had forgotten, and it had boiled dry from the water and then ignited and exploded. So we always had that story at Christmas. And so that's probably another one that'll end up in the autobiography as well. There are your professional and academic records, and that could be your trades as well. So resumes and CVs. I've kept a few of those, and I went through them and went, oh, I hadn't really thought of it from that angle and how I wrote that. And so lots of interesting ways to tap into that. Awards and recognitions, I've kept some of the ones that I've gotten over the years, and that's where I actually found a few newspaper clippings of years ago when I worked in Australia even. So we'll see how they all end up in the storyline. And academic transcripts, these degrees, the trades, what you can showcase from an educational point of view, what you learned. As a sort of a joke in my life, I got more letters after my name than I do in my full name. And that's kind of a funny way in which to introduce myself sometimes. It's appropriate to certain situations. Other times I just keep quiet. You also can tap into your community involvement records, your volunteer records. What have you done from a volunteer point of view? Your membership in organizations, what was happening in those areas? So you can document. I kept, like, for example, I kept a journal, what more called a logbook from my years of rafting. I worked as a rafting guide for 22 summers. And so I kept records of my rafting trips. And I kept a few of those as evidence being involved in rafting. And I also did quite a bit of first aid instruction in the outdoors, and I kept track of a lot of that. Even the first aid book that I wrote, I have that copy as well. And again, pictures of that will end up in this autobiography. So the notion of these evidence pieces that you can pull from, these are 12. Again, you'll be able to access them. I'll make sure that they end up in a PDF format that you can download on the blog article, and that will be in the description. But you could actually just stop and take a screenshot here on the video. So these are 12 evidence components for you. So to be able to come back to the that main drawing, okay, I want to then talk a little bit about the education component. And what I want to do there, again, is just remind you that this education influences things. Now, the education you have gone through yourself, and that can be brought in, but also the ways in which you educate can be brought in. So this is a good time to sort of tap into what this education story is about for you and see what is unfolding there for you. So I'm just going to check. I don't think there is any comments. I don't see anything, no, at this point in time. So we'll just keep going. So what I'm going to do is take you over, and we're going to take a look at what are called the 12 education approaches. And these are just going to be snippets. Down a little bit later, I'll just share with you, I wrote one book. I'm in the process of writing another book on this topic. But I'm bringing this to the foreground in that in living your legacy life and making a contribution, your stories, to share your stories, to look at maybe a major project that you want to do, is that when you listen, you learn. Where you share, you educate. So by bringing your contribution forward or sharing your stories, in a way, you are educating others. So think of it this way as well. Who influences you, and you influence who? And when you come at it from, okay, I can figure out what I want to do and who I want to influence me, and you can start to set up the ways in which you would like to educate others, to share your contributions, share your stories. And I just want to go over these 12 with you just to set it up. Now, the first 4 are really about what I call get this back here. This is about teach in the reach. So these lean into words that usually associate with teaching. So often people will say, well, I teach. I think there's 4 ways in which we go about doing this teach. And what you're doing is you're trying to figure out, okay, how is it that I am going to reach people and help them out? So facilitating, for example, is really working with groups for the most part and drawing insights from them to be able to brainstorm. I use the word blue sky, bring ideas to the foreground to find solutions to issues that a group might be having. I can do that one-on-one with someone and say, okay, what are some ideas you want to work with? So I could facilitate you in a way, I'm doing it now, is to think about, well, what evidence are you going to collect to be able to frame up your contribution? So that's facilitating. What you can then do is do instructing. So maybe there is something you want to share, how to do something. With instructing, it's very much has a why or deeper connection. There's almost a philosophy, an aesthetics component that goes with your instruction, which is a little bit different than training, because training is to give the insights, the practices, so that you can use it now. So for example, crocheting. You can instruct crocheting and understanding why do you crochet, maybe some of the history of crocheting, but maybe you're getting together and you're teaching an actual way in which to do crocheting that someone wants to learn now so they can go home and put it into their crochet work that they're doing. So I'm just using that as an example. So as a contributor of someone helping others to learn crocheting, that could be a legacy contribution. You could take it all the way to a legacy project where you create an online course about crocheting. Another day, we can get into that. But again, just to find that those threads that become strings, cords to ropes. You could do consulting work. You might find yourself in that still younger aspect of your older time where you might go, I would still like to get back into my career, into my trades, and maybe I can do some consulting work and help some younger persons learn about what I learned about. Maybe you're a great business owner and you want to help young entrepreneurs. Maybe you are a great project manager and you want to help others learn about project management, which would be really great for those who are thinking about doing a legacy project and they don't have project management experience. You could help them. And that might be something I'll call out and see if any of you want to get involved with that. So building community, shaping and sharing community. Let's see what we can do. The next area of 4 that I want to bring to the foreground, I call the guide. Oh, come on. There we go. Guide on the ride. So you're on a path with someone, you're helping them out, and what you're doing is you're sort of serving as a guide. And I think there's 4 ways in which we can do that. The first one is mentoring, and this is very much a 2-way trusted relationship where the mentee is asking questions of the mentor, and they're unfolding a relationship that is reciprocal and holistic, wholehearted. A coach may join you and you might say, I'd like to really improve my performance around something. And you say, well, I can coach, or have you coached? Do you need a coach to be able to help you out? These are education approaches. You can go so far as to get certification in mentoring, certification in coaching, if that's what you want to do to support what's taking place. The shifting, I use the word shifting. Some people might say course correcting, adjusting. Maybe there's ways you can help people to, they're moving through their life. Your contribution is to help them make some decisions like decluttering, how to create a legacy story from boxes. So in some ways, I'm helping people shift from maybe have a whole bunch of boxes into having a few boxes and decluttering and doing that over time rather than trying to do it all at once at one point in time. So that's just an area of shifting, and someone might want to do a pivot and go, you know what, I've been doing oil painting, but I think I'd like to get into watercoloring, and they want to do that adjustment. And you have watercolor experience, so you might be able to help someone move from oil painting to watercolor, and what does that look like and feel like, and learn something yourself. Then you can get into the world of counseling. I always say there's a line here. Counseling has a little bit more professionalism associated with it. So I would not be becoming a friend of a counselor of friends. Let me frame it that way. You may say, well, okay, I can listen, but I think there's something here that you may need to go get some professional support from. But you can think about counseling and helping people deal with their challenges. I know in family and friends, sometimes just being able to listen to what someone's talking about can be of great assistance. The next area that I would bring to the foreground is what I call the sage off the page. And this one is getting deeper into possibility, the background of what's going on, a little bit more holistic in the approach. So there is the sense of celebrating what has been happening. So even this gathering of evidence is a celebration process, possibility. But guess what? You could become a celebrant. There are marriage celebrants. There are ceremonies for those who've passed away, those who are looking for an alternative way in which to get married. There is the ceremony of moving from youth to an adult. There's a lot of ways in which take a looking at celebrating. And it could be the celebrant of writing a book, right? And helping maybe a friend of yours who's written a book to celebrate that and figure out ways in which to help out. And then there's the sense of how to do weaving and blending things together. One of the images that I would share with you is fibers that become threads, that become strings, that become cords, that become ropes, right? What is it that's available to you? And you might find being in a group of those who are looking at what does it mean to be aging, and maybe you want to get a book club together. And so reading the books, the threads, those strings, those cords, those ropes, and about reading those books in terms of thinking about aging from a well-being, well-living perspective. What does that mean? And then collecting those ideas together and publishing your own book, or offering a workshop, or doing something at the local library. Again, weaving ideas together. Navigating is guiding yourself through challenges. One of the things that I always encourage those who are aging and find themselves in the older and they're looking at legacy, well, challenge yourself, navigate a different area and see what actually happens for you. I hadn't thought about it, but I really dove in now to YouTube and the YouTube channels. I've actually got 3 channels going, and I'll share a little bit about that with you. And what I'm doing is I'm diving in to find out how to get to a point where I can monetize 3 channels. So I didn't know that I would actually go that far. I thought 1, and I'll just use it to help myself out. But I'm just diving in and I'm navigating that whole process. And then another one is to look at your sense of whole versing. This is a little different one. And this one is looking at the whole picture and how things are connected. And by bringing that forward, it helps you in living your legacy life, but it also can help others, because the wisdom that you find in that balancing, that harmony of living that extraordinary life. And this is certainly where nature comes in, and getting involved with nature. So again, you could become a whole versant. I sometimes talk about a holeric, right? It's similar to, remember, you can become a navigator, you could become a weaver, you could become a celebrant, this kind of idea. So those possibilities are there for you. So one or more of those might be how you're going to bring your contributions to others. And if you wanted a little bit deeper dive into it, I wrote an article that is on LinkedIn about these 12. This is the reference to it. I also, earlier in my life, I wrote a book called Help Them Help You, which was about the 9 educating approaches. I'm actually rewriting this now and talking about the 12, but this book is in the store on the website if you want to go take a look at it. Now, before I leave it, there's a couple of other elements. I have this younger, older, elder YouTube channel that I'm playing with, and you might be here listening through the live feed, or you're watching the video here on that YouTube channel. I also have the YouTube channels of Wksp, which is about awareness from forests. I have the International Mentoring Community, which is about all things mentoring. I've written books like Co-Creating the Well-Living World and Creating the Well-Living Workplace. These are available and you can get them through the store. These are evidence pieces for me. And right at the top of it, I've been writing journals. There's a prompt book for nature and a legacy journal that you can get a hold of. And again, these are in the store. So I just offer these. These are my evidence creation tools as well that I use. But these are ideas for you. You could create journals and notebooks. You could write based on your tips and tools, co-creating the world, creating workplaces, how to create community projects. You could create your own YouTube channels. These are just evidences that feed over into the world of your, oh, okay, what educating approaches do I want to use? So again, think about it from that perspective. So I'm just going to touch base to see if there's any questions that have come in. There's nothing at this point in time. So I'm hoping you're gaining some insight here into the catalyst that goes with the sense of the 3 E's, so that what I can do is say, okay, let's bring forth then experience. How is it that we can look at this notion of experience feeding everything? Now, with experience, this is one that I've done a lot of work in over the years, and there's lots of different workshops that I'm going to offer on these Saturdays. Remember, the third Saturday in every month, I'll be doing this evidence education experience workshop and be inviting some of you. We'll do some one-to-one mentoring and explaining, and then offering some more tips, tools, and techniques associated with them. But from this experience point of view, you could use a word like events here as well, is the creation of experience in events. So I have something that I want to share with you around experience. So let's pop up into the world of experience and look at the 12 experience tenets. If you're going to create an experience, so think of your legacy contribution, and you're thinking, okay, I want to write my memoir. Well, there is an experience, because when you go to share it, there are elements of these 12 that you may take into consideration. Some you may not, some you might. If you're looking at creating a project around a water well project in another country, these 12 experience tenets may prove to be interesting about setting up the project. These are the beginning of project management. But there's something about experience that I just want to share with you, that just on any given day, you could get up and just by sharing who you are with others, you are providing a sense of experience. And these are the 7 core dynamics of experience. And I keep these fresh in my mind all the time, so that when I go to do an online presentation, when I go to have a conversation, when I go to meet someone, if I'm going to interact with someone, can I help them create an experience? Maybe they're sharing something with me, and then how do I respond helps that experience. So you want each of these experiences, if we can, to be workable and practical. Is there a bit of dramatic in there? And sometimes I'm sharing my hero story, and so I might bring out that machine gun that went up my nose in Africa. I might talk about, I was in Iran when they took the American embassy years and years ago. I could talk about my whitewater rafting accident that took place and what it taught me about all the other years. There is novel, something about that's original and fresh. This YouTube channel and figuring that out, there's a lot of novelty there in terms of what I'm figuring out. Is the experience consequential? Is there something that moves it forward? I'm hoping even this workshop that you're participating in, there's something consequential for you. Oh, yes, I will lean into a legacy contribution or share a legacy story. Some of the tips and tools and techniques that are here, it's a start. Hey, I'm going to jump over into your YouTube channel, Younger, Older, Elder, and learn a little bit more. Hang on a minute. Wasn't there something about awareness from Forest channel? Oh, there's something about mentoring. I could go over to the mentor practices. So again, just weaving that fiber to threads, to strings, to cord, to rope that you can play with. Metaphoric. Oh, I so enjoy metaphors, like the bridge from A to C. If I'm at A, I need to get to C. B is the bridge. How does that play in? But that bridge could become a bus, a boat, different ways in which to use it, the ABC. Transferable is that, can you use something that you've learned here somewhere else? So I'm hoping by going through this workshop, you can go, well, what could I do if I transferred this even to a friend of mine about how can I help them sort out? They may be going through a bit of a rough time. They've lost their significant other. They now find themselves as a solo ager. What might I do to be able to help them declutter, but declutter through a legacy lens? What do they want to keep to be able to develop a legacy contribution, a legacy memoir, autobiography, something that they may want to bring to the foreground? So again, can you use different elements of what I'm talking about in different ways? So it's transferable. And then one of the key things is, how can you make it safer and protect and secure? One of the things about experiences is you've got to take care of your own personal safety and the safety of others. And I bring that up from using the word felt safety. When you're going into experiences, do you feel that you're safe? I know that when I did a lot of team development work and I was using experience-based techniques, I always had to brief people going in so that they felt safe, and then make sure that they were safe while they were in it. And then debrief it from a safety point of view. What did they learn? And so these are just things to think about. And again, I'll be running workshops as I dive a little deeper into that you might find useful. But let's go over and just take a look at these 12 experience tenets, okay? I'm just going to check in to see if there's any, no, there's no comments at this point in time. So let's go back to the tenets. So the 12 experience tenets, these are things to think about in terms of pulling it together, and you want to give it a little bit more structure. Now, you could create the weekend dinner and every Sunday get together and maybe invite different friends or your family, whatever it might be. And you might go, well, I don't really need to think a lot about how to organize that. Great. But maybe you want to take it up and go, if I was to invite some new persons, what would that mean to that tradition? How might it influence it? And these 12 tenets might help you organize that. You might say, I want to create a contribution and I want to run a workshop. As just a one-day workshop, couple of hours at the local library. What would I need to do? You might say that, remember that I mentioned that well project in another country. What might I have to take into experience? What do I have to take into consideration to be able to create that? So think about it through that lens as we work through this. So what becomes important is, who is it that you're creating the experience for, the event for? Who's the audience? Is it your family? Is it your friends, your family and friends? Is it your community? Is it work colleagues? Is it someone you don't even know, but you're inviting them in because you want to share what you've learned over the years? Who's your audience? In the business world, they might use market, okay? What are your mission, vision, and values? What's your life purpose? That kind of idea around that. What is it that you are thinking about as you're bringing this out? You might have the value of trust, and you want to help people learn about trust. And that might go out, and your vision is to run a workshop on trust. And your mission is to get that out into communities all around where you live, so you can go to different libraries and offer this trust workshop as an example. So then what products, services, and events are you going to put together to go with those? Products being tangibles, I can hold it, so I got something I can hold. A service might be mentoring, it's a little harder to grasp. Events would be something that's bigger, like an online course like this, an online presentation, and bringing those together. How might this tangible add to the service of presenting this workshop that then leads to getting people involved in a online course called Legacy Mastery, as an example. And then there's the communication. This is where we fall down sometimes, because we forget about the importance of communication. And communication is about the level of commonness that unifies us together into action. That's what communication does. And therefore, there's an internal communication. Yes, you're talking to yourself, me, myself, and I. I get that. But there's also that communication of those that you're working with directly who may be helping you to put out what's going on. And therefore, there's the external communication, just the everyday, how to be involved with someone, inspiration, motivation storyline, engagement, participation storyline, just the everyday communication with others, and how are you communicating? If you're alienating a lot of your friends, it's difficult to then go ask them to get involved with something that you're doing. Give you that as an example, okay? And then as you start to move into it, there's the more formalization of marketing, which is thinking about, okay, what's the message, the media, the market to the audience? What does that all involve? How do I get my message out? By what channel, what online channel, that kind of idea. If it's a family project, maybe all you have to do is just phone everyone and say, hey, listen, when you come over for dinner, we're going to do a little theme dinner. And what I want you to do is bring ABC, XYZ, whatever it might be. So that would be quicker marketing in a sense. But again, you wouldn't think of it that way because you're going, well, it's family. I'm just asking you to come in prepared. But if you're doing something that's bigger and you're saying to your family and friends, can you help me out at the market, the holiday market that's coming up? I could use some assistance putting things together, taking things down, but also having some wonderful support during the time there. I'm there for 3 days. How can you help me out? So you need to market that story to get people to engage and with you. Now, sometimes you may have to get into the whole world of technology. Remember I mentioned younger, older, elder, YouTube? I'm learning a lot. Thumbnails and titles and the first couple of lines, the hook in the first 30 seconds. Oh, lots and lots of things. But if you're using different kind of online platforms, or you're figuring out how to use a writing, a book system, you're looking at project management software, all different kinds of things, technology plays a role in it. Then there's the governance. There is the legal aspect of this. Sometimes the legality gets in. If you start involving others in what you do, and if you start paying them, but even volunteers, you could find yourself at issue with the environmental, occupational health, and safety services system. And you want to make sure that you don't go afoul of that. Right? So there's some governance components. And if you're setting up a charity to go with this, what are the legal aspects that go with that? And that's what governance is about. I spent many years helping charities sort out their governance approach so that they didn't get into difficulty with the legal aspect of things. Of course, there's the financial aspect. Remember, money, currency, what you got available. But you want to make sure that you don't slip into financial only from a money point of view. This is a bit of a tangent. I would use a word like profitability, profit, the finances. But profit also is ideas and relationships. So don't get lost in that. Wealth, actually, as a word, is spelt Wealth. Sometimes we forget this, but the notion of wealth, WEAL, is weal, which is about the common good, the community good. And therefore, wealth, the wealth creation that you've done, is to support community. Yes, to support yourself, but supports community. So even the financial, if you're using this sense of wealth, how might that support community? And that could be part of the legacy project, and just reframing that storyline as well. So what you're doing now is you're saying, okay, what is it that I can do from a management point of view? This is the creation of the systems that you want to work with. And leadership is, what are the practices that you want each person to work with? So in some ways, these two chase each other, and therefore learning about management leadership. But your experience of life, you may already have a lot of that. But if not, as you bring persons in and you're doing it through a volunteer capacity, what's volunteer management leadership about? If you're bringing people into groups and teams and organization, and you might be hiring someone to help you out with your online platform to do your content distribution that you're creating, your memes, your images that you want to put out through TikTok or Facebook or whatever, and you're hiring people, contractors in, management leadership is going to play itself out there as well. So think about those two aspects separately, and then how do they come together? Then there is this whole area of personship. People call it human resources in other capacities. There's the big UYOU, and that's working with groups and teams and community. But there's also you, from a mental health, a soul, spiritual, physical, mental, emotional. There are aspects of that you have to keep coming to the foreground, and being able to tap into it and understanding that. So the experience you're creating, is it going to feed your soul? If it is, then there's probably something to be said for, oh, let's celebrate that and use a celebrant technique to go with. Maybe you're using it in a mentoring capacity with others. So again, when you go back into the education point of view. The other component here is resource allocation. Remember, I chatted with you from the perspective of time, effort, and money. So legacy is about the useful what's, time, effort, and money that you gift others so that they can learn something from your experience. This is where it plays itself out. What do you have available? What might you have to go get to be able to make that available? So again, ways in which to think about this as you move forward. So with that, what happens is that says, okay, that's great. What we're going to do is come back to this. So let me just check again in case someone's asked a question. Don't see anything at this point in time. So to come back to this, there is the sense then, as you can appreciate, these three things chase themselves. Evidence, education, experience, they chase themselves. Think of it, though, this way. If you're on your path, you have the evidence that you've created, and you might go, well, I want to create some new experiences. Great. How do I go about doing that? And that gets me going on my path. You might go, okay, if I'm on that path and I want to help others, what education approach do I want to use so I can help them? And then what I select my education approach, it'll influence the experience that I want to offer. And of this walking the path, what starts to happen then is that you go, hey, that's really interesting. I am actually going to, in my sense of it, oh, where did that go? There we go. What's going to happen is that my experience is going to give me new evidence that feeds new experiences, that encourages new education approaches. So I think you can start to see where the dog chasing its tail metaphor works itself out. So as you are moving along this path, okay, as you're moving along this path, you are using these three elements in your life. So that's why I wanted to do the workshop, so that what could happen is you could start to get an appreciation of, okay, that's great. How does that all play itself out in terms of what's here? So I gave you a sense of, okay, there is this evidence that you can pull from. There is the education approaches you can pull from, the experience components that you can play with. So what happens is that there is something here that I just want to bring to the foreground. And it's this here. Just make it a little tad smaller. There we go. And what it's about is just bringing these three components together. So for example, the evidence, okay, is what you want to gather and curate. The education is review and select from, experiences, strategize, and manage, and be able to move it forward. So I've given you the 12 things to think about. And therefore, if you're moving into this living legacy life point of view, I would offer this information here. As you move in, what you're doing is you're gaining clarity so that you can make a contribution, so you can communicate from understanding and valuing aging. Aging, older, younger, older, elder. Are you a solo ager, a parent ager, companion ager, grand ager? What is it that you're sharing from? What way are you looking at aging? And therefore, what is the, if it's aging that you're looking at, what's the felt safety aspect? And making sure you got safe systems and safer practices in there. And how do these three E's give you that moving in component? And then from a moving forward perspective, as you continue walking down this path, you're going to be then thinking about communication, collaboration, co-creation, and therefore, how do I bring this well-being and well-living to the foreground? And how do I make sure that I get that movement, that profitability and sustainability? And how do these three things help that as well? So I offer this to you as a way in which to remember it, because what that does is it gives you something else to think about as you are working through and revisiting this this video, is how are you going to bring these three elements together? That's a question. How are you going to use these to create legacy contribution, legacy story, legacy experiences vis-a-vis projects or programs? So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Is very much a bigger picture perspective, okay, to be able to take a look at these and say, okay, this is great. What am I going to do with this? What's available? So what I'm going to do is encourage you, okay, at this point in time to think through, okay, this is great. How might I subscribe to what's going on at younger, older, elder and find out what's taking place? How might I use this evidence education experience catalyst to move my living legacy life forward? That's a possibility as well. You may say, hey, listen, I want to learn a little bit more about mentor practices. You can go there. Maybe you say, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about awareness from forest. You can go over to there. There's lots of things that you can do to be able to move yourself forward. So I just wanted to share with you, there are lots of longs and short videos that are coming up on younger, older, elder that you can tap into at a given point. But please, I enjoy comments. So put comments down below. Is there anything you want me to edit, add, alter, delete to this video or any of the other ones? Are there any topics that you would like me to cover? Knowing the third Saturday in every month is this evidence education experience workshop, and I'll be bringing examples in or deepening or diving in, I should say, diving into topics related to evidence from tools and tips point of view and technologies, education experience, diving into them a little bit more. So other Saturday mornings, there'll be other tools like thinking about ethical decision making, the 7 components of conscious listening, and bringing those to the foreground in service to you, the audience, younger, older, elder, especially leaning into those who are aging in the capacity as older. But I believe everyone can benefit from what it is that I'm sharing here. So I think that pretty well covers it for me. So I'm going to wish you the best. I'm just going to check one last time. Nope, there's no comments or anyone looking for anything at this point. So with that, I'm going to wish you a great day.